Hey y'all, time for some more fender patching, so let's see what we can get done.
No, you're not bringing home another piece of junk.
Okay, so yesterday we, if you followed along, we cut the cap off this front fender that was screwed on. We kind of cleaned up the inside and went back and tack welded it on there because we wanted to get rid of that overlap seam. I think that's what caused some of the rust problems on this thing. If you look down here, like this side is good. This side is just a nasty glob of body filler and sheet metal that's hardly there anymore. So what we got to do, if you look down here, there's a flange on this thing. So this flange bolts onto the top of the gravel pan, and then flip this thing over. I'll show you. Get all the junk out of the way. And on the back side of this thing, this piece right there, there's like a piece of thicker metal that sandwiches this flange between this thicker metal and the one gravel pan bolt over here. So there's three holes. You got this one in the middle, and one in the back. This one bolts to the gravel pan. The one in the middle, actually, this bracket off of the bumper bolts to. And then the one in the back, the valance panel goes all up under there too. So that all kind of connects together. So got to kind of fix all that stuff together, get it to line up, you know, get bolts in all those holes to make sure everything lines up before we call that side done and put it together. And then we got to repeat the same thing on the other side. So tonight I'm going to try to make this piece, and I want to get this connected back to here, get this up even with this, get this welded up. Now I've got, I don't know if this is thick enough or not. No, it's not. This was the edge off of that. I had to buy that quarter panel patch for the other side over there, but it's kind of got some neat curves and stuff, and it's like I'm not going to throw that away. I might need to use that for something. So we're probably just going to have to make a new piece for this, which shouldn't be too hard. It's a 90-degree bend with a, you know, a little bit of curvature in here and a little bit there. So I don't think that's going to be too difficult to form or make. I don't know if I'm going to be able to bend that and then get this curve into that piece, or do we just like make this piece like this flat and then make a piece here and, or sorry, yeah, like cut this out, make a piece for here flat with this curve in it, and then take another piece along here and weld them together. So I kind of have to see how to do that. But first thing I think I need to do is, I think we'll cut this probably like, let's see. Let me get into some good metal here. And this feels decent up to here, but let's go about right here to about, and I think that's good back there to about right there. And we'll cut this off down here too. Okay, so let's cut that off and figure out how we're going to make that. Okay. All right, so this is the piece I cut out of the fender, and I got it flipped over right now. But it should go like this. And obviously you can see what's missing there. So one of the questions I've had people ask me is when you're working with metal that's got some rust on it, how do you know when you can stop replacing and when you can save? So I guess there's a couple of things I use to reason, like when I'm cutting with my cutoff wheel. If I put it here and it just blows right through it with almost no resistance at all, obviously that metal is too far gone and too thin. So when I was cutting it, it was like that here. When I got up into here, when I was going across here, you could feel some good resistance, that you were cutting something that was still thick and had some body to it. And then another thing is, if I put my MIG welder on a number 1 and blow a hole right through it, obviously it's too thin to try to save. But so I welded some of this on a 1, and it did okay. Now you get these pits in here, and you'll get a deep pit once in a while that might rust through and put a little pinhole in there. So out of this whole thing I got one little pinhole, but most of this is pretty good. So that's when I you know, my way of thinking is I can take pour 15, I'm going to stop saying POR, pour 15 and coat that and not have a problem with that, without that ever rusting out again. As long as I treat it and make sure it's covered up. It's not, you know, the pour 15 is not porous at all, so it's not going to get any more oxygen to it. You got to have oxygen for rust, so that'll fix that problem. Now when I get up into here, you can see the pitting is a whole lot deeper, and you got a bunch of pinholes. So that's where I kind of crossed the line. This is probably okay. This is probably not okay. And that's just got to be your call on these old cars. Now, after I get them done, I get them together. I usually don't take them out in crappy weather and blow, you know, snow and ice and road salt and all that junk up under there again. So once I do all this work to them and undercoat them and, you know, get rid of as much of the rust as I can, I try not to subject them to the same conditions. I'm not trying to build a daily driver for every type of weather. So like I said, it's just got to be your call, you know. With this fender, if there was a brand new fender available, I might have gone and went ahead and bought a new fender, but that's got to be your call too. But as in this case, there is no new fender available. I did a 65 Dodge van, I think you see on the intro to all my videos, that blue van, and put a ton of metal in that thing, and very little of that was available aftermarket. I think the front wheel arches were available, and the quarter panel on one side was available. Everything else there was cut off of other old vans and saved, or I had to make it. So, but I enjoy doing it. So, you know, that's kind of your call how you want to do this. All right, so I need to make this and make it a little longer, and you can kind of see the weird angle of that piece. So, but I've got this piece over here, which when we put those quarters in the back of this car several years ago, we'd slice this piece off and just cut it down to where it was bad. So I'm thinking, there's that seam there. I can probably make this piece out of this piece. So that's what I'm going to try to do, and I'm going to try to make it with that bend to it. And if you see, that's just not a straight bend there. As it travels up, it kind of goes out that way. Look at the other fender. And I'm going to have to make the same piece over here. So it kind of flares that way a little bit as it goes. This one's pretty bad too. In fact, I think this one's worse than the other side. All right, so let's see what we can do, and I'll cut this out and see if we can get this formed and make it fit this thing. All right, so here's what I did. I took this piece, cut it out, put it in my bender, bent that 90 on there. And I had to figure out how to do this soft bend because, like I said, that's not a hard bend like in a bender. That's a nice soft curve. So what I did is I found this piece of pipe, and when you laid this on there, that bend followed that curve of that pipe pretty well. So then I took this, I laid it on here, and I kind of traced. I tried to look at where that curve, the center of that curve was, and then the center on this end, which that wasn't there. I had to look at the other end of the fender and kind of figure that out. And I just laid it on top of that pipe and bent it over to the same curve. Make sure you use gloves when you do it. And that's pretty darn close, I think. So then if I take this over here, I still got more trimming to do. But I think that's a good start of fitting in here. And I should be able to trim that down and form that where it needs to go. So still got a few steps to do here to make it work, but I think we're getting close. So let me trim this thing off and see if we can get this formed in there nice. And if so, we'll get it tack welded in place. All right, there you go. I got it all trimmed, got it tacked in there, and just knocked the high spots off the tacks a little bit. I still got a little bit of finish welding to do, but this curve lines right up real nice and flows right into this curve, and this curve is real nice and flows right into that curve. So wasn't too hard to make, wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Okay, so that is that piece, and like I said, I got a little finish welding to do on it and grind it off. So right now I'm just kind of getting these pieces made and getting them tacked on there. Had a little repair to do right here that was cracked there, so I went ahead and put a little weld on that. So I think the next piece we're going to try to make is, and I also did a little repair under here. It wasn't rust, it's just from this piece flapping, it kind of cracked a few spots in the back. So I just lined them back up and welded it back. There's a brace back here, welded it back to that. Got that line back up right and got that solid. So I think the next, I'm not sure if I need to make this piece and this piece together, but I'm thinking I'm going to work on this piece. There's a pretty good dent right there. And I've got several pinholes right here, several little pinholes up here, excuse me, up here. Just ate a banana, I got the hiccups. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to make like, I don't know, maybe something like this. Like that. And then I'll have to see what that's like behind here and see how far we need to take that over. But I know we need to do that. And I know we need to go about to there to make that piece. And if you can see, this body line comes along here. So, and it kind of gets shallower as it goes. It gets pretty shallow here, and then you get a little bit of a bend. So just got to kind of make all those pieces, and so I'm thinking 1, 2, probably make all this as one. So probably 3 more pieces to finish that fender up, and then back over here we're gonna have to patch these two together. And I may end up taking this back a little farther. It's got a pretty good dent there, and I'm thinking it might be kind of thin there. So maybe when I make this, we'll bring it back over into here But I mean, it's coming along. You know, it's not not as difficult as I thought it would be. You just got to kind of divide it up into individual pieces and do one at a time. So I'm pretty happy with how this one came out. And then of course I got all these trim holes to fill. We've seen that many times. We've done. And then up here, this had these Fender, I don't know what they are, the Fender trim. They look like little jet plane things went on the front of this thing. I'm not crazy about them. I think I'm just going to fill them holes and leave them off, because I'm kind of doing, I'm kind of deleting some of the other trim on this stuff and kind of doing my own thing with it. So I think we'll get rid of those too. I ain't real crazy about those. Okay, so that's all for tonight. I got a little electrical work on Kyle's garage to do tomorrow night, so we'll probably pick this up. Let's pick this up Wednesday night, and let's make our next piece. All right, and that's all for tonight. All right, so I'm just about ready to start making my next piece, which will be this piece up under here. But before I did that, I thought we need to put this back on here and just kind of do a fit test and make sure everything is lining up like it should, and you know, it's not getting twisted, or so when we bolt this thing down that it's going to line up good. So my holes back here are lining up. My holes down there are lining up. These holes down here are lining up. And then I have got enough new flange down there to work with. And then just looking here, like if you kind of look at this angle, you can see that the leading edge of that headlight bucket is kind of slanting down a little bit, you know, like slanting out that way a little bit at the bottom. And then if you look here at this straight piece down there, that the bottom edge of the headlight bucket, it's straight but kind of leaning that way a little bit. All right, so if we go over here and we look at that one is leaning out a little bit, just about the same as that other one is. And if we look at the edge of the headlight bucket, it is about at the same angle at the bottom as that piece is. So I think we're looking pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. I wanted to throw it on there and make sure that this thing doesn't get all crazy and twisted out of shape while we're putting it together, because it is, as we're welding it together, it is stiffening up. With that, having to put that bottom piece there when that was broke, it was kind of flapping around up there. So it's starting to stiffen up, which is good. All right, so I'm going to pull it back off there, and we're going to look at that next piece we got to make. All right, so I cut this piece out of here, and it went in there like that. You know, got a little bit of a curve to it in several places, but this is where I'm going to start using this piece, and this is off the back of the parts card. So if we look, you know, the curve at the bottom down here by my thumb is different. It's more pronounced. It goes out farther than this one does, but the shape of the metal is pretty close. So when I put this up against here, you can kind of see how similar those points are. So I'm going to cut right out of here where my thumb is. I'm going to cut that patch out of there. And I'll probably have to work it a little bit, bend it a little bit to get it into this shape. But we'll go ahead and do that. And I think I'm going to have to make this in 3 pieces. So I'm going to do the piece I'm doing now. And then we're going to take maybe 2, maybe 3. We'll see. And then we're going to make this top piece and part of this side piece out of this also. that's, you can see that's got the perfect curvature there that you had right here. So that should weld in there real nice. And I may even trim this back further. You know, I may go back to here and go back to here, and there's a little dent here, go back to here, and get a nice smooth piece in there. But I think this is going to work pretty good. So, all right, I'm going to cut this first piece out and kind of get it worked into place, and we'll get it tacked in there and see what this looks like. All right, so this is a piece we cut out, and it's pretty tore up, pretty thin, full of pinholes. There's the piece we made. So we're going to tack that dude in there, and then once we get that one done, then we're going to look at what we're going to cut out for this top piece. And I think we're going to be cutting out a section like here, you know, probably back to here, go back a little further, but we're going to get a nice piece out of there, and that's got that curve in there that kind of already preformed, so that's a good deal. And we might just save the rest of that thing too. It's kind of got some nice curves in it. And, you know, this in here, you never know when you're going to need a piece like that, so I'm bad about piling up scrap, and you know, anything that's got a weird curve or a, you know, swoop to it like that, it's like, oh man, I might need that to weld on something else. So I don't know if we'll save it or not, but we might. All right, let me get this one tacked on, and we're going to take a look at the top piece. All right, we got that piece welded in there, and that looks pretty good. So I don't know if we're going to mess with that top piece tonight or not. It's getting a little later, and I might just do that one this weekend. I got a few days coming up off of work, and going to try to dig into this thing, and I'm hoping by Wednesday evening of next week to have both these fenders done. Cause I'm gonna have to work a little, do a little traveling for work for a couple of weeks, so I'm probably not gonna be hitting this too much. So, all right, I guess we'll call this for tonight, and we'll pick this up and we'll finish that top up probably either tomorrow night or the next night. So we're ready to tackle this piece, and so we're gonna do this piece, and then kind of this top corner over here. This is got some pinholes in here. Now I thought about just, you know, doing this whole little triangle piece, but when you go underneath, it's, for some reason it's pretty clean, like to right here, but then it got a bunch of pits up in here. I think just the way this thing pointed before, it just got a lot of junk, road junk trapped up in there. Yeah, I guess it kind of got slung up in there, and then it you know, it sits there and rusted out. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably just, you know, cut that much. We'll see. You know, it's kind of a complicated body line. I mean, it doesn't look that bad, but it's really nice and rounded, and the way it rounds this way, that's a tough one to duplicate, you know. So if I could save some of it, I want to save some of it. So anyway, what I did is I took some cardboard and laid it over here and just kind of cut this out like so. And this is where I'm gonna cut everything. So we're gonna go back to here, and you know, this is, might as well go back to here, and there's a little dent here. We're gonna catch that, get rid of that. So that's about what I want that piece to look like. So then I took that over here. This is my piece from the back from the other car, and transferred it onto there. Now, I mean, you could make this with a piece of flat metal, but you've already got this nice curve like this, and this kind of nice curve this way that's really close to the curve on the other piece. So, you know, and this is rock solid, so I might as well I'm gonna use it, you know. a little bit different over here. You know, on the other car, this kind of slopes down, and this bend is a little different. So what I'm going to do, we're going to cut this piece out and then lay it on top of the fender, and then just kind of bend it and form it and get it to where it really lays nice over the piece that we're going to cut out, you know, and get all these curves right and stuff. And we're just going to kind of have to hand form it and bend around on it and get it right. So then once we got it to where it's really laying on all the edges good, and it's as close as we can get it, then we'll cut that piece out and weld this piece in. All right, so let me shut this off a minute. I will cut this out, and we'll start playing with it and see how close we can get this. Okay, so I cut this piece out. See if you can see that. And I took my little die grinder and cleaned all the surface rust off the back, cleaned the paint off the front. Like I was, this good solid piece, no pits at all. So, and I've been kind of bending and adjusting around it, so it fits pretty darn close, if you can see that. Okay, so anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trace this out on here, and I'm going to cut this out a little further. You know, cut some of these edges off and cut this stuff off. But one thing I was thinking is, like back in here where these brackets go, once I get that welded in there, I'm not going to be able to reach that very good with a paintbrush. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cut out, get it opened up, and I'm going to take some Pour 15 and paint all that in there and let that dry for several hours before I weld this piece on there, because I want to make sure that all these little hidden areas back up in here, that once this fender's together, that's protected, that, you know, protected as best we can from this thing rusting out again. So let me get my find my marker here. So I'm going to line this up. I'm going to line that front edge up as best as I can. About like that. About right there is where it needs to be. And I'm sure once I get this cut and actually go to fitting this piece, you know, I'm going to have to do a little bit of trimming here and there. And I'll probably cut inside this line to leave me a little metal to play with, so that when I go to put this in place, I can trim back. It's easier to trim back and open it up if you have to, rather than having a big gap to fill. So we're going to cut right like that, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut down along here. And we're going to cut this line going up here. All right, let me cut that and open it up, and we'll show you what it looks like. All right, so we've got this cut out. As you can see, this piece is going to fit pretty nice. Now, there's still a little bending, still a little trimming to do on it, a little tiny bit there, a little tiny bit here. But we're going to make all that fit into place. That's just minor trimming we got to do. But before we do that, so like once that cap is on there, getting on the back side of this, the back side of this, and down in here with a paintbrush, and getting that, getting some protection on that is really going to be tough, because you're just kind of flying blind. You can't see what you're doing. So got my little baby can of Pour 15 here. I like these little cans because once you open this stuff and you put the lid back on it, it's almost impossible to get back open. This stuff is tough, and it gets down in that lid groove, and and you can't hardly get it back open. That's why I generally stop buying the quarts and the bigger cans, and I buy these little cans, so that a lot of times I can just take this whole little can and dump it into a paint cup and use it all in one shot. So I'll use the rest of this to paint the whole inside of the fender when I'm ready for that. But for right now, I just want to get all these places that I'm not going to be able to reach once this thing's together. You know, I got a little groove down here, it's really runny, so it'll get down in there, kind of let it run down in between these two spot welded pieces, and I can grind that back off so I can have a surface there to paint, but get it down in the middle of there. And then I want to get back in here. And yeah, when you weld this, it's going to get hot and it might burn some of it off, but it's, for the most part, it's going to stay in there. And for anybody who tells you, well, this is just black paint, you can use any black paint to do that, it's not. It's you know, regular enamel paint or whatever has some porosity to it and breathes a little bit. This stuff does not. I mean, it seals. In fact, it seals so much you can't hardly paint over the top of it with automotive paint without using a they sell another product to kind of etch it so you can paint over it. Sometimes if you just try to paint over it, it's so slick and hard, the paint will just, it won't adhere and it'll just slide off. But so this stuff is great for frames. I mean, I've painted frames with this, and you can sit there and beat this stuff with a hammer after it's dry and not damage it. So I'll get that good coating in there like that. Everything else I can reach by flipping the fender over. I just wanted to get that in there. So this paintbrush is now junk. We'll throw it away because you can't clean it out of the paintbrush. All right, so we're gonna let that dry for 3 or 4 hours, whatever, until this evening, and we'll get back out here and we'll start trimming that panel, and we'll get that thing tack welded on there in the right place. And then that's going to be it for the metal repair on the fender. We got to do the finish welds, and we got to grind those off, and we got to fill the holes. I'm not sure if I'm going to do all that and then start on the other fender, or we'll just have to see how far we get tonight. Because like I said, I got a few days off till Thursday, and then I'm really going to be spending a lot of time at work, and not going to be able to touch this too much for a few weeks, except for maybe on the weekends. So at least for most of the month of March. So my hope is get both of these fenders to this stage, get them done, and at least temporarily bolted back on the car by next Wednesday. So we'll see how far we get. Okay, be back in just a bit. All right, there we go. So I've got some more finish welding to do. I just got it kind of tacked in there now, but I did go ahead and weld up this front edge where these two pieces come together and ground that, and that line came out really nice. So I'm pretty happy with the way everything came out on here. Like I said, some of this was just tacked together, and I need to go through and finish weld this and then grind that. But as far as the body lines, I mean, you know, that flows right in there. This one comes down, flows right down to that one. This one looks real good coming along here. So, you know, that's the most difficult part to get, is especially when you got one that's kind of doing that weird curve like that's doing there. You know, you got a curve going this way, you got a curve going this way. And you look at this body line here, it comes straight, and then it kind of dives off this way, and I thought, well, it just doesn't look right. But then I go over here to this fender, and I looked online at some of them, and it does do exactly that. It comes down here, and then these last few inches, it just kind of dives off. So, and then I went ahead and measured, you know, like here to here, went back a little bit, took a measuring tape, went on that one, and it's right on. So I'm happy with it. Okay, so that's probably going to be it for this video. Might do a little tag here at the end, but like I said, I got to finish weld this up. I got this hole, and I got all these trim holes. So I think I'm going to go ahead, get everything welded on this fender, and get everything ground down. And then start on that other fender and just do, we'll just bolt this, you know, throw a couple of bolts in, throw this one back on, and then do the same to the other fender. You know, got a lot of filler to grind off that thing. And I'm thinking do the same repairs. I think some of them might be worse on the other fender, because like this, flip this over. Yeah, I got a little piece to fill in here too. But this bracket on the other fender where this bolts in up here, this is gone on that fender, so we might have to do some fabricating there. So I'm gonna go and grind all that, like I said, yeah, finish welding that, grind it. I'm gonna take the pour 15 and paint the whole inside of this fender. And then it should be in pretty good shape. It should be ready for filler and for paint. So pretty happy with the way it come out. So I don't know if I'm gonna show the video of doing the other one. I mean, we just did everything on here. I don't know if you really want to see it again, but I'll probably just go ahead and knock that one out, and then we'll show it when we got them both together, and go from there. All right, so that's gonna do it for today. We like I said, we've got that fender pretty close to finished up, and I'm just gonna do the finish welding on it, grind on it, and start on that other one probably sometime tomorrow. So I got a few days to work on this stuff, and hopefully by Wednesday or so we got the front end done. One thing I wanted to start doing, you know, occasionally you hear me talk about my faith a little bit on here, and I want to be real about who I am. You know, I am a Christian, and I am a believer in Jesus Christ, and a believer that He is the only true way to heaven. And sometimes I think that I get a little wrapped up in the car stuff here, and I don't want to put the Lord on the back burner, because the only reason I'm able to do this is because He's given me the health to do it. He's given me the knowledge and the talent to learn this stuff, and you know, He's put people in my path that I've been able to learn it from, and you know, met a lot of wonderful people over the years, you know, doing car stuff and car shows, and sharing my faith with them, and they're sharing their faith with me. So I'm going to start taking a little bit of time out of these videos, just to share a Bible verse and maybe do a little prayer together. And I also want to say, if anybody has prayer requests, if something's going on in your life, you know, you got an illness, you got you know, relationship problems, or you know, you're not sure about your relationship, God, whatever prayer requests you have, drop them in the comments below, and I promise I will pray for you. And I'd like to ask anybody else on here who reads those comments to pray for the people who drop that in the comments at the bottom. So let's share this verse for today. This is one I read this morning. This is Joshua 1:9, and it says, have not I commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And man, that is a good one for today. You know, with all the stuff going on overseas, all the crazy stuff going on in our country, you know, don't be discouraged, don't be afraid. You know, God's got control of this. He knows what's going on. He works everything out for his glory, and all this is part of his plan. So, you know, just be strong in your faith and share with other people. Don't be afraid to, you know, to speak out about your faith in public. We may get a lot of flack for that. I hope people don't quit this channel because I'm going to start doing this, but this is something I just feel like I need to do. So I'm going to ask for prayer for somebody today. A good friend of mine and my wife's, Judy, has been suffering with cancer for the last few years, going through a lot of treatments. I'm not going to give her last name because of anonymity, but just pray for Judy. Pray for her family, her husband, and her kids, and you know, the doctors and nurses taking care of her, that they can find a solution and get her cured of this cancer. She's a wonderful lady. So let's pray together real quick, and we'll wrap this up. Father God, we just thank you for this time today, and I thank you for these people who have been watching this channel and tuning in on this, and just ask that you would touch all the hearts out there who see this, and whatever prayer requests are put in below, that you would answer those, and you would just prompt us to pray every day, to read your word every day, and to strengthen our relationship with you. We ask this in the name of your son, Jesus. So hit like, hit subscribe. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one.